This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so I guess we are all set to begin. Do we want to start with a quick round of introductions?
So what we've been doing is I've been reading off the names on the screen, and then everybody can just mention what community they're from. So I'm Brian Doherty from MRPC. Grace Belmont. Grace?
Sorry, I'm just messing around. I'm Grace Belmont. I'm in the Transportation Department with MRPC.
Brian Croto.
Town of Winchendon.
Amanda Reed.
Town of Lunenburg.
Daryl Amaral.
Stat District 2.
Jerry Bean.
MRPC.
Tyler Golden.
MRPC.
George Snow.
MRPC.
Chelsea Patras.
Health Equity Partnership of North Central.
Travis Condon.
North Central Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce.
Randy Williams.
Town of Ashburnham.
Richard Kilhart.
Athol, DPW, Town of Athol.
George Kahali. You're back on mute, George.
George Kahali Mart.
Ryan Doherty.
Town of Ashburnham.
Town of Westminster.
Oh, sorry.
Nick Erickson.
City of Fitchburg, DPW.
Brian Doheny.
Town of Ashburnham. Thank you.
And Derek Schuster.
Good afternoon, Derek Schuster, MassDOT Office of Transportation and Planning.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have the public comment. Is there anybody that has public comment for today that would like to weigh in? And I don't see any on my end. Brian, did you have any messages with any of them?
I do not.
Okay, so I guess we can move on from that. I know we've got sets of minutes to approve, so let's start with the December 11, 2024 minutes. Are those all set to approve, or does anybody have any questions or comments on them?
I can just mention that if you remember in January, these never went out with a mailing. They never made it into the folder, so we determined to bring them back for this meeting. So we have two sets of minutes, December and January.
So are we all set to approve? Do we have any motions from the MJTC members?
Go ahead.
Is that George?
And we have been doing this on consensus, so if there's just a motion and second, that would be fine.
I mean, I can make the motion if that's fine. Someone wants to second it.
Second, Brian Croto.
Thank you. And now let's move on to the public participation program. So I'm going to turn that over.
So we have the January minutes as well. We've got two sets of minutes.
Okay. Yep. So I'll make a motion to approve the January minutes.
Second, and Brian Croto.
Thank you. And now, Brian, we'll move on to the public participation program, if that's all right.
Yep, and I can take that. If you remember back in December, we discussed our public participation plan draft. We made a recommendation as a group to the MPO to release this for a 45-day public comment period, which the MPO did. Their meeting in December. So this is our official outreach procedures, more or less, for the MPO. We went over this a little bit in detail in December. This is the first update we've had since COVID. The last time it was done was 2017. So a number of things changed, although mainly the goals and principles of the whole document remain substantially the same. I reviewed these details in the summary in December. We changed things like some repetitive language. We tried to make it more reader friendly. We updated some policies that have come on board since 2017. We reorganized the document a little bit, and also since COVID, we've primarily been meeting remotely. So, we've added that language in there. So relatively minor changes, nonetheless. We updated this, went out for a 45-day public comment period, which started December 19th and ended on February 3rd. So the idea was to review the comments with the JTC and make a recommendation to the MPO, whether or not to endorse this at next week's meeting. However, there were no comments during the comment period received. So I have nothing to review with you. I can try to answer any questions anyone may have. Ultimately, we're looking for a motion to recommend for the MPO to endorse this at next week's meeting.
All right, thank you, Brian. Does anybody have any questions?
So moved to recommend, Brian Croto.
Second, Janet Tice.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the next item on the list, item number 6 of the FY 2026 to 2030, the TIP, and we do have a February development update.
Yep, and I'll take this. Back on the topic of the TIP, our development of the 26 through 30 program. We've had a number of updates since we last talked in January, as I mentioned back then. Since then, we've gotten our regional target allotment. Basically, this is our budget for our regional target section. Majority of our discussions happen within this section. The MPO has discretion over project placement. So this would be the budget we'll have to consider when we get to the point of discussing project priorities moving forward. So what you see is our current active program, the 25 through 29 TIP target section allocation on the left column, compared to our updated allocations on the right, the 2026 through 2030 program. You can see some slight differences. Of course, we're dropping 2025 this go around, adding 2030. In comparing the years, 2026 is roughly the same, difference of $1, it's a rounding error. We'll be looking at $13 million budget on our target section for that federal fiscal year. The out years, they can vary. These numbers are really assumed, so we assumed them last year. These are assumptions from this year, taking in various obligations related to federal funding through the state. So in 2027, in comparison to last year, will be about $15.8 million this year. This development cycle in 2027, which is about $260,000 below our last year target for 2027. In 2028, slightly above $16.47 million, which is roughly $67,000 higher than we assumed last year. And 2029, again, lower, about $364,000. We'll be looking to allocate $16.348 million. Finally, in 2020 and 2030, we'll be looking at a budget of $16.6 million. I will mention, you can see some differences, for example, between federal fiscal year 26 and 27. You can see a slight increase there. This is all due to our obligations being fulfilled with paying back federal GANs payments, grant anticipation notes. Basically, a number of years ago, we borrowed money against future federal funding to fund the accelerated bridge program. So those payments will run out So we'll have a slight increase in 2027. There are variations from last time we did this exercise, but slight. So no major changes here. This budget will have to consider basically the two most important parts are within budget and project readiness. We'll be looking to place projects. So this is a new point of information that we'll be considering from this point on. Another thing I'd like to go over is our valuation scores for projects. So all the projects in our regional target section we consider for funding are prioritized and scored based on this criteria. So this is our transportation evaluation criteria. I'll go over exactly what we look at when we look at these projects. We look at a number of different categories. The first being condition, things like the pavement condition currently, what that project would have an effect on the pavement condition, the effect the project would have on infrastructure elements such as geometric designs to an intersection or existing bike lanes, drainage, utilities, that sort of thing. We look at the existing average daily traffic of the facility. We give it a score based on that. We award it points based on whether or not it includes complete streets concepts such as new bike lanes or separate bike lanes, separate sidewalks, that type of thing. We look at mobility type of issues such as congestion, roadway congestion, intersection congestion. We try to determine if a proposed project would have any effect on congestion. Same thing with travel time, network connectivity. We look at impact to transit service, whether or not it's on a fixed bus route line or it's near a MBTA facility, for example. Also, whether or not it promotes single occupant vehicles. Under the safety section, it's a little bit cut off here. You can see the first question we look at is whether or not it's on a list of top intersections in terms of crashes in the region. There's a list that we maintain. We also look at the crash rate, crash severity, if a project would have an effect on that. Say if it's an intersection project that has some safety elements, we would consider that an improvement. We would award it points. Whether or not it have an effect on bicycle or pedestrian safety. Also, whether or not it's on a list of 200 top crash locations that's maintained by the state, we award it points based on that. And community effects and support, we looked at the effects that it may have on the surrounding neighborhood, things like noise, traffic flow, and housing stock. We look at the effect on certain populations, such as Title VI and EJ populations, whether or not it's supported by local, regional, legislative governments or the general public. And also, believe it or not, we look at active participation among the community in the MRPC, MPO, and JTC. So we award points for participating in this regional exercise as well. Under land use and economic development, we look at positive or negative effects to business in relation to general access or traffic flow, noise, freight access, whether or not it fits within local concepts and plans or whether it's specifically mentioned in the plan, whether it has an effect on job creation or job access, and whether it's on a evacuation route or located near emergency facilities. And finally, we have environmental effects, either positive or negative effects on air quality, water quality, cultural resources, wildlife habitats, and endangered species, and the overall resiliency of a project. So it can be awarded points or points can be taken away in this environmental section as well. So each individual project is scored based on their merits in these categories, and all of our projects are done. Basically, based upon this information, we come up with this list of the world of projects, so to say, that we're looking at potential candidates for placement in our regional priority section. We have one new project this year in Lunenburg, safety improvements at Route 2A and Electric Ave and Chase Road. It's a relatively high scoring project. It's brand new, so early stages of design. You can see where other projects landed in relation to each of this evaluation criteria. We're always willing to review this with communities. One project we haven't scored yet because we're waiting for additional information is the Gardner project you see at the bottom of the list, shared use path construction. Again, this is in the early stages of development. The evaluation score is important. However, most often we look at whether or not a project is ready in design to go in a particular year, meaning whether or not it's ready for advertisement before September 30th of a year, and also needs to fit within budget as well. So those are the two things that we most often talk about. That being said, we're always willing to review a project score with the community. So if you're interested, give me a call, or we can set up a meeting and we can kind of discuss how we look at things. And if you have new information related to your project, please let us know, and we'll consider that and rescore it. One other thing I'd like to go over is overall project statuses in the region. Again, this is just for regional priority projects, so where NPO has discretion over placement. We went over existing project lists last month. We went over the highway priorities, the Mass DOT priorities, statewide section, and also the transit section, which is cultivated by MART. We'll get a chance to look at those likely next month or in April. But for the purpose of this exercise, these are the updates that I have on the projects that we're looking for placement in the regional priority section. So this is kind of a hybrid type of handout. Every year and project on our radar in this section is in here, and I apologize if it's tough to read. But basically, I updated the project statuses. What you see in the current listing is where they currently are placed in the 25 to 29 tip. I also updated the budgets. I'll go over this, and in anticipation of next month, reviewing some different scenarios for project placement. I'll mention a few updates that will be relevant when we go through that exercise. First off, 2025. During the development of this 26 to 30 tip, we'll drop 2025 and add 2030, but we still have to consider these projects. Leominster reconstruction rehab or Route 12 will be off our list. That's on its way. It's being built, so we don't necessarily have to worry about that. However, Harvard resurfacing and box widening on Air Road, this was a topic that we discussed a lot last year. Some background, basically last year in 2025, we could not identify a project that was a complete home run to place in 2025. In other words, we didn't have full confidence in every project's design to be ready in that year. The most confidence we had was this Harvard resurfacing and box widening project. So that's why it ended up there. With the disclaimer that there was a good chance that it wasn't going to be ready in 2025. So it exists on this list right now, but with the feedback that we received in the last month with various project proponents and those at Mass DOT, the consensus is this will need to move back. So that means back to 2026, thus potentially moving other projects back as well. I'll also mention this is advanced constructed over 2 construction seasons, 25 and 26. So we'll have some additional effects as well. So we'll have to consider that when we talk about scenarios next month. Again, this Harvard project is in 2026. I'll also mention, I have in the notes, see meeting minutes from April 24 MPO. The consensus of that group was if this project did have to move back, that it wouldn't be moved back more than 1 year. So that's something that we have to consider as we move through the exercise. Along with the second half of Harvard in 26, we have Ashburnham. Route 101 project. Again, after consulting with various project proponents, Mass DOT, the consensus was due to some environmental regulation obligations still forthcoming, this would likely have to move back a year. I know the town and has been trying to work closely with the consultant and moving this forward for a number of years. Currently, it's actually still at 25% design. That 75% are due in March, so we're still not to that point yet. It's really important that we have a project ready to go in 2026 that we can be confident that it's ready to go to bid before September 30th of 2026. So that's something that we'll have to consider when we go through the exercise of scenarios next month, I should say. Keeping with the same theme, in 2027, Templeton, another advanced constructed project over 27 and 28. This is reconstruction of Route 68. It's been around for quite a while. It's moved back a number of times. Again, this year, the recommendation is to move this back at least 1 year. In fact, we'll be considering moving this back even further than that, depending on how the rest of the scenarios shake out. So something to consider as well before we get into that discussion next month. Another thing to point out is the balance here, the target balance in 2027. We are not fiscally constrained, so in any event, we would have to move something around. We have to stay within budget in each one of these federal fiscal years. I'll go over the rest of the 2027 projects. Clinton, reconstruction of Sterling Street and 62. This is on schedule. Athol, intersection improvements 2A and Brookside Road, again on schedule. In 2028, we have Templeton, reconstruction of 68. This is the second year of the project I just mentioned above. Again, we'll be looking to move this back at least 1 year. Along with Fitchburg in 2028, reconstruction of John Fitch Highway, which is on schedule. Sterling intersection improvements 140 and 62 on schedule and within budget in 2028 as of now too. Things will shake up. Again, discussion we'll have next month. In 2029, as of right now, on the current list, we have Air, the project downtown at 2A and 111, road rehab, which is on schedule, along with Athol sidewalk installation along Templeton Road on schedule, and Winchendon intersection improvements at Blair Square, again on schedule. 2030 will be the year that we'll add into this exercise, into this update, $16 million, 0.6 budget. And finally, we have what we call the appendix. These are the projects which we haven't placed in a year yet. We reviewed these projects as well with Mass DOT. We have the new project, Lunenburg. The earliest recommended year for placement is 2030. It goes with Gardner shared use path construction, that project as well. The earliest year, 2030. Westminster roundabout construction. This was actually a new project last year. It came on board late in the process. We do have a tech evaluation score for this project. I believe it's a 31. Let me check that real fast. I was right, 31. So I just haven't updated in this handout. Again, that's a candidate for placement in 2030. And we have 2 projects on the list that aren't recommended for placement. That's Ashby, reconstruction of 119, and Sterling West Boylston, improvements at 140. So these are the projects we're considering during this update. We'll look at various scenarios next month. We'll continue to get updates from project proponents, and we'll share all the information we can. If you have a project on this list you'd like to talk about or update us, please reach out to me. We'll be in the process of putting this document together in the coming weeks. Next month, the idea is to look at some scenarios for a list for 26 to 30, come to a consensus, develop that into the draft tip for April, send that out for public comment after the MPO meeting in April, as we've done the last several years. So that's my update for this month. If there's any questions, either today or anytime in the future, please reach out to me and let me know. Is Travis still here? He might have left.
No, I think he left.
Okay. Are there any questions on the tip? Again, reach out to me at any point, and we can sit down and look at your project, or if you have an update for me, that's helpful as well. Next on the list is the 26 UPWP February update, and this will be Sherry.
Alrighty, so if we can start with that one. All right, so the UPWP is coming along. This month we're presenting on the distribution of studies and tasks, which is otherwise known as the equity section. This is where we look into two different components, the demographics of the region to be sure that we're, serving all the populations fairly. And the other component is the geographic equity, where we look at the distribution of projects to be sure that our transportation work spreads across all of our communities. For the demographic component, we use the 2019 to 2023 American Community Survey 5-year estimates, because this is basically the most current data we have available at the time. For the demographic data, we used a few different breakdowns, environmental justice being one of them, and the other two are FTA Title VI and FHWA Title VI, which are slightly different but similar. So we actually analyzed all three of those instead of just choosing one. It just seemed a little bit easier. When we reviewed the past 5 years worth of tasks to determine which category, if any, these project locations fell within, the current year task review has not been completed yet because we haven't quite finalized our list of tasks for the upcoming year. But we need to finalize our task review first, and then we will add that section over the next month or two. The following table summarizes the results. The rows that are in gray are the communities that met all three criteria for environmental justice in both Title VI, the FHWA and the FTA. So you can see that most of actually keep going, Brian, scroll down. Keep right here. So you can see that all the gray rows are the ones that meet all three criteria, and there's quite a few of them for our region. And then if you keep scrolling, the map below shows the social equity distribution for the community-specific projects over the past 5 years. The communities in blue or no purple tint have had projects completed in the past 5 years and do not meet the criteria for special populations. The communities that are in pink have had no projects in the past 5 years, but meet the criteria for at least 7 to 9 specific population definitions. So right here, we're kind of focusing more on like the Athol, Gardner, Clinton areas. Those meet all the population criteria, and no additional projects have been done or requested through the UPWP. Whereas, and also the darker purple, which is Fitchburg, Leominster, and Air, are also just behind the pink communities in the special needs special interest populations and lower project requests. So then we scroll a little bit further, and this one is the geographic equity analysis map that was conducted based on the number of projects that were completed over the past 5 years. So the darker color indicates where the most projects were conducted, and then the communities in lighter color or white had fewer or no projects requested or done over the last 5 years. So, we always say we try to focus on those communities that are in white, but when we put out the memos, most of the time these communities are just not the ones that submit the requests to us. So I'm not sure if that just means that we need to focus heavily on them with outreach, or if they're just overall just not interested or need the assistance. So that's just to be determined, but we like to at least indicate where we're doing our projects and where the needs are. As far as the proposed task list, there it is, perfect. So the projects highlighted in yellow are the newer projects for the upcoming year. So you can see project number 1.3, we have the RTP development and outreach. We tend to do that before we really get started on the update of the regional transportation plan. We like to do some outreach, gather some data, just to make sure that we are all ready to go when it comes to really digging into this document. And then let's see, we have 2.6 is the trail inventory update. We had mentioned years ago that every 5 years, I think was our goal, we would update our trail inventory. I think it's been 6, so we are definitely due for that one. 3.1, we have the Shirley corridor. I will get into that in just a minute. 3.3, regional bike and ped plan update. That one was done during, I think it was 2000 or 2020 or 21. So kind of during the COVID times, where we definitely were not able to get as much outreach and information for this document as I would have wanted. So I think creating this update will allow us to really get into that a little bit further. And there's also been a lot of developments for bike and ped since 2020 or 2021. 3.4 is the Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan update, where we are going to take the data and the information that we are doing with WSP for our Safe Streets for All project and kind of follow up with a lot of that information. It gives us a little flexibility to, assist communities that may want to receive funding for these types of locations. And then the final one is 4.4 Transit Resource Guide. And this was a request by MART for us to assist them with their resource guide. So I'm just going to go back to the Shirley corridor study because I just wanted to mention real quickly all the requests that we had received. The first one was from Shirley, and they had requested this project last year, but due to the geographic equity, we had done a lot of projects in Shirley, so we had passed on them, but did recommend that they request the project for this coming year. So this is along the corridor of Route 2A in the North Shirley Business District. They want a corridor analysis. It's kind of in the area of the Bull Run, if you're familiar with Shirley. So we are proposing that we add that to our task list for the upcoming year. We also received an email from the town of Air where they were interested in an intersection analysis in the area of Park Street, Fitchburg Road, Groton School Road. They had asked, what they needed to do to finalize that request. And I had said, have the Board of Selectmen submit a formal letter with their signature on it. And we had not received that as of today. So we are passing on that project for now, but there is still time to add it for the following year if they want to resubmit that request. We had heard from Devons as well. I had met with them last week to talk about some ideas that they had in relation to mobility connections in the areas. They had two sections. One was the Hospital Road area in Shirley that would connect up to the Oxbow canoe launch area, and then in Air, McPherson Road and Bishop Road, where the gate does close sometimes. They want to make sure that there's bike and ped access to those locations. After speaking with them, it sounds like they were more in favor of allowing Shirley and Air to make their requests. They didn't want to step on any toes for that, but also that we could incorporate some of this into our bike and ped plan update as well as our trail inventory update, so we can try to focus more on those while we go about that. There was a fourth communication with Sterling. They were just kind of feeding some information to us to see what we thought, if it would actually shake out into a project. It was in the area of the elementary and middle schools and the senior center. We had done work for Sterling recently, but I don't think they were aware of that at the time. So we kind of revisited our walkability study that we had done and kind of pointed them in the direction of the Safe Routes to School and Complete Streets funding. So it sounded like they were happy with that information and they were going to move forward on their own. So really the most formal request that we got was from Shirley, and that's why we're proposing that one as task 3.1. I think at this point, we're just giving you this information and just seeing if anyone has any questions, because we would like to bring this to the MPO next week so that we can move forward on the project write-ups. Does anyone have any questions on what we have here? Okay.
Looks like we have in the chat, Sherry from Chelsea, just a heads up, there will be probably some analysis needed when a site is identified for a freestanding emergency facility to replace Neshoba Valley.
Chelsea, we kept 4.2 called Future of Mobility. That's a standing task that we've had over the last 2 years. So that might be a place that we could add that information. I know I need to touch base with you anyway about what else we want to include in that task. So we'll follow up soon.
Okay, any questions for Sherry? Seeing none. Next on the agenda is the NPO Subregion Representative Caucus. As I've mentioned a few times in the last few months, we're having a caucus tomorrow, I should say, 5 o'clock at our office in Leominster, geared towards the subregions of the NPO. So this will determine who the official voting member is in each subregion. You can see the list on this handout. So we've been shoring up attendance. I'm sorry if we've been harassing you, but we really feel like it's important to have every community represented at this. This is something we plan on doing every 3 years. Basically, get everyone in the room, try to shore up membership, have some communications between the communities within each subregion, and determine who will be the voting representative at these NPO meetings. So again, that's tomorrow at 5 o'clock at our offices. We'll have dinner as well. We've heard from everyone except for Phillipston and Hubbardston. So we expect it to be well attended. If anyone from Phillipston or Hubbardston is here today, I don't think we have anyone from those communities, but we'll continue to try to pull them in the boat as well. I'll give an update on this next month as well, and hopefully we have a new slate of signatories for the NPO. It should be about an hour. The caucus will go over some basic information about the MRPC and the NPO. It'll be just the transportation department and the people attending the caucus. It'll be relatively informal. We'll have food. We'll do a short exercise related to, a discussion on various transportation issues in each community. And we should be good to go after about an hour. Again, tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Any questions on the caucus? Okay. Contract status reports. RTA. George Kahali, do you have an update?
Yes, I do have one. As I mentioned last month, MART was notified of MassDOT award for a successful grant application. That application provide $278,000 for 1.5 years through June 2026 for a shuttle service to Emerson Hospital from the towns of Air, Shirley, and Harvard, providing healthcare options for the many residents of the region negatively impacted by the recent closure of the Nashoba Valley Medical Center. After meeting with the impacted towns, we met with the elected officials. We created a shuttle service schedule to Emerson Hospital with one stop in each community selected by the town officials. That schedule runs from 7 o'clock in the morning to 5 p.m. The stop in Shirley will be Shirley Senior Center, and in Air Public Library on 26 East Main Street, and in Harvard will be at the Business Plaza at 285 Air Road. and will be servicing Emerson Hospital, main campus, and also Emerson Hospital Center for Specialty Care outpatient at 3 different stops, 54 Baker Ave extension and 290 Baker Ave extension and 310 Baker Ave extension. And this will be open to anybody comes to these 3 stops in Shirley, Air, and Harvard. The shuttle service will start on Monday, February 24. Please spread the word. Thanks.
Any questions for George? Okay, I just have a quick update on relation to a public information meeting regarding the Athol Bridge Replacement Project, Route 2A over the G&W Railroad. This is next Wednesday, February 19th. The information is in this handout. And then the one other thing was I saw in Chelsea had mentioned a meeting of the Future of Mobility Group. Will be hosting a luncheon on February 25th to review the mobility master plan goals and begin next steps. So you can see the link here in the comments. And that is all I have. Are there any questions on those items? Okay, under administrative matters. Before I get into the next meeting, I had it in here open meeting law changes. The current rules on open meeting law that allow us to do this remotely, I think expire on March 31st. I've heard that there's some things in the works that will just extend this ability to remote meet for the time being going forward in perpetuity. Does anyone else have any information on that? I feel more confident that we'll be able to do this moving forward. I think that this date got kicked back a few times in the past. Of course, when COVID happened, everyone was meeting remotely, and there was a expiration date on that for the open meeting laws. And I think like 2 or 3 times it got extended. From what I hear, there's a law sort of in discussion right now that will make this change permanent. So I welcome that. The next meeting of the JTC will be the second Wednesday in March, which would be March 12th. Again, 2:30 p.m. remotely. We'll be discussing some tip development items and the UPWP as well. George Kahali?
Yes, I do have a question here from Chelsea asking if we have flyers for the Emerson Hospital. Yes, we do. Please contact Josh, our marketing coordinators. And also we have all the information and the schedule on MART website. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Brian Croto.
In a second?
I second.
Okay, see you next month on the 12th. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.